All right, everyone. Welcome to another Buzz Players interview. Today we have Jack and George from Arliston. How are you guys?
Good.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. So it's Jack Radcliffe and George Hasbury, and I wanted to know, first of all, Hannah introduced me to you guys, and she introduced me to. She sent over scratches. Well, she actually sent the whole album. Honestly, yeah, and it was sick, dude. I know we're supposed to focus on scratches or whatever, which is an awesome single from the record, but I listened to the whole album and it's like intense, dude. There's like a lot. It's so like to me, and I know that, and let me just get this straight. So the full album, which is Disappointment Machine, is the full album, and that is not out until the 7th of February, or is that later and there's another single coming before then?
No, you got it. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
February.
Okay, got it. So Disappointment Machine releases February 7th. My first question for you guys, really. So let me just kind of explain to whoever's watching this right now. By the time this airs, I think we're going to put this up when it comes out, so people can, or in whatever Hannah wants to do. She might want to put it out when Scratches, because Scratches is already there. But this album as a whole, and I will talk about Scratches too, but the album as a whole is like massive. I mean, it's like very emotionally driven, very emotionally driven. It's very honest.
You can say it. It's very sad. It's sad.
Well, it's not just. But it's not. Music is supposed to be. I mean, come on, why? There's a lot of quotes out there that talking about, a lot of great artists said no one really creates things out of being happy. They create, they make things out of being sad or frustrated or angry. But this was very cinematic. Musically it was very vast and spacious and expansive, kind of. And I like that you guys put in like this element of natural and digital instrumentation together for the record, because there's like elements of like electronic synth work and stuff in the production of it, a lot of like electronic synth work that's kind of scattered about amongst like pianos and guitar. So it's a very beautiful kind of mix of natural and digital instruments, and I think that to me, it's people will call it whatever they want, but to me, it's like a kind of, I would call it cinematic pop, but people will call it dream pop. People can call it dream pop. You can call it maybe even alternative pop to an extent.
Cinematic pop is a great one.
Yeah,
we'll take that.
Yeah, good. I think that's the best way to describe it. I mean, because all the songs, they're not, all the songs aren't exactly the same each time, obviously. You guys expand and contract throughout the record. There's levels of intensities that come and go, you know what I mean? And production wise, it's very, I think the music production wise matches the vocal approach and how intense that can be at times, especially lyrically, because it's sad, but it's just really, it's honest, you know what I mean? It's a lot of inner thoughts spilling out, and it's just, there's no walls built around that aspect of it. And I feel like the musical side of things, I think the levels of the kind of the feeling and the emotional levels of both things kind of complemented each other really well. It's a beautiful record, man. I mean, it's honestly a gorgeous record. It's huge, a massive album. How did you guys? All right, so now that I've said that, I want my first question really for you guys is how you guys actually met. Are you guys friends? How did this happen between you guys?
I think, like most modern romances, it started on the internet. I think it did. Yeah, because I was working with a guy called Toby who knew you from university, and we did a little bit of music together. But then we're looking to take that show live, and that was the point that you came in, George.
Yes, so I had done sort of like a live show with him. And that was all, like you say, like electronic-y stuff mixed with the pianos and guitars and stuff. And he was like, I'm working with this guy, we're doing this project. It would be cool if you could do what we did here, take it live, make it actually like work as a gig. And so brought me in. And the rest is a romantic history, isn't it?
Yeah,
You guys are very romantic right now.
we're celebrating our sort of 7th anniversary now. It's been a while.
I mean, it's a beautiful thing, man. I mean, you guys, have obviously done this for a long time, and this is, you guys, this is kind of a momentous record because it's just, to me, it's just so big, and it covers so much ground. And I was curious to know how you guys knew each other. And I also wanted to see, that was another question I actually had. If you guys actually do play live shows, if you guys go out there and perform.
Yeah,
so you
absolutely.
do.
Yeah. We were running through the set for the album release show that's going to be in St Pancras Old Church on the 6th, the night before the album drops on DSP.
Oh, nice.
And it's really invigorating to play those songs live, because often, I think particularly early in Arliston's history, we would play them in the studio and get the mix very, very accurate and perfect.
Yeah.
But they would kind of become deadened through all of that repetitious playing. And to actually play them live and get some kind of feedback from the audience makes them alive again.
It reinvigorates. Yeah. I'm very, aware, I should say, I guess, of mixing and remixing and mixing again and mixing again and mixing again forever until you don't even know if it sounds good. So I definitely understand that and how it kind of drains the life out of certain aspects. But when you listen to it from that outside point of view, it's a wonderful record. And I love that you play it live. So how do you pull that off? Is there more than you two? Do you guys have how does that, so much going on?
There's, for the biggest iteration of the show at the minute, there's 4 of us. So it'll be me playing keys and a bit of acoustic guitar and some questionable BVs. You'll be doing lead guitar and lead vocal. And then we've got Sam on the drums, who's just an absolute wizard. He's one of those people that's just annoying. It's just annoying how good he is. That's saying that a band's only as good as its drummer, then we must be like one of the best bands out there. It's ridiculous. And then we've got Maddie, who is playing cello and backing vocals. And again, just annoyingly talented people.
Yeah. We've done that. Yeah. There are all sorts of quotes, aren't there, from CEOs and stuff who say, like, my trick is surrounding myself with people that are better than me. But what they don't say about that is the aftermath leaves you feeling terrible about yourself.
That's a good point. I think it's awesome that you have a live cellist, that you guys bring in the cello, because that's like such an imperative instrument for this kind of stuff, because it's my favorite instrument of all time, the cello. I tried and I just couldn't get the vibrato part. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I play guitar, I play like a lot of guitar and stuff, but it's different on a cello, man. It's
we like
different.
Frets. We like rigid frets. We like where the notes are, and we're happy with that. Right?
It wasn't even the fret thing. It was honestly just the vibrato and how to make it sound pretty. It's the vibrato of the cello that makes it sound so beautiful. Have 50% of it. But I'm just a fan of bowed instruments anyway. But yeah, I think it's beautiful that you guys bring it live. I think it's great that you have a cello in there. When you listen.
For this record, it was like we had to, because there are so many strings that we recorded in the studio that it felt like we'd be sort of shortchanging the audience if we were just to be like, we'll just sort of put it on track or sample it or something, and got to have some of it live. And she's just so good that it sort of translates well, which is a relief.
And a lot of the time we would have like a song where we thought, okay, there's a space here for the job that cello we expect would do. And so we'd play like a really crap, cello line on MIDI keys, like, oh yeah, that's great. And all the white notes. And then think that was acceptable. And then got some cello 3-pieces to come into the studio where we eventually recorded it, and they just blew all of that stuff out of the water.
Oh yeah.
At that point, we realized, I think maybe live cello is now quite a fundamental part of these songs.
It's funny how that changes, isn't it? I mean, you have the idea and this is really interesting stuff, and this is what I wanted to know. This is like the meat of it for me, because I'm into the recording process and how that works. You know what I mean? Because to me, a record like this, there's so many like layers and textures to it, you know, that I was just really curious about that. So it's funny that you go into about how, oh, here's what the cello's going to do this. And you play that you play a little kind of like MIDI track, you know, scratch on it.
We went in, as in like we'd play it in, and then I went back to uni. I was like writing the score. We were notating out these chords, and then they came in and they all have perfect pitch, which is another mark against them in my book. You can't be walking in with perfect pitch and just being like, yeah, okay, yeah, so it's an F sharp and a B, it's fine. Yeah, I got it. Don't worry. I spent hours making this.
yeah. And they roll in 1, 2, 3. Oh, you mean like this? Yeah. And they
And then they're like, would you like it to be, you know, like maybe 150% better? Because that could be better. And then you're like, oh, right.
But that's their forte, you know, that's what they do, you know. But it's, you know, I can only imagine, you know, what it must be like to even just go through the process of, you know, spending the time to track kind of like a certain kind of line or a certain kind of melody set that you want to go into a song for an instrument like the cello. And then you put in all that time and effort, and then, you know, it's obviously going to be better. You're excited that real cellists are coming in. That's got to be exciting. And then it's like, they come in and it's like, well, how about this? And you're just like, maybe next time it's like, hey, maybe we'll just have the cellists come in and write their own parts to the, you know? Right. See, you go. Oh my God, that's amazing. It's such a cool process. Now, so for this kind of stuff, you know, you mentioned you're hanging out and doing the keys. And so do you guys, you know, is it like half and half where like you have like a sort of like a home setup where you record some of the production stuff, and then for the big instruments like cello, you go into a studio? How does that work? Like that?
Yes. Or? So all the songs were written in the little bedroom studio setup that I have here in Brixton.
Nice.
And then generally our format is that we take those to a studio in Peckham called 123 Studios, which is run by a guy called Brett Shaw, who's brilliant and does all the mixing. And that kind of two-stage filter process is really good for us, because George is actually better at this than me, but I find I can only listen to a song maybe 50 times before it dies, and I not only can't hear it anymore, but I hate it, and I hate myself, the annoying person singing on it, and all the stupid choices I made, the stupid person I am. And so it's quite good to get fresh ears on it halfway through the process, which kind of reinvigorates it again. And I go, okay, maybe I'm not quite so stupid. All right, it's sort of fine.
Yeah, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was. I think that's cool too. So, but what I'm trying to get into is what I'm hearing on the record. Like some of that is actually fully recorded at your home studio, or do you redo all that stuff?
No, I mean, I would say, I don't know about you, George, I'd say it's sort of 80%, probably 70 to 80% recorded at the home studio.
Awesome. And then you bring it in and add whatever else.
Yeah.
The big studio. Yeah. And do you do vocals at the big one, or do you do vocals at home too, where you're more comfortable?
So often at the home one, but Brett has some incredible mics at his place, some like, you know, 20 grand Neumann 7s. And so you can't resist. If there's something wrong with a vocal take, then I'm first one to jump in.
Even if there's not, even if there's just, you're like, oh, maybe I could put a BV on it. Wouldn't hurt to fire up the 47, would it? Like,
no, it's like we're here, we're getting studio time. I might as well see. And then it's like you sing into it, it's like, oh my God, my voice sounds amazing in this microphone. Then you end up doing the whole.
God. Yeah.
I mean, like, just you can mute the music. Let me just hear myself in there.
So it's kind of that's cool too, because it's like, you know, you have your own way of doing things. I would figure that, Jack, you're more comfortable at home in your bubble, you know, alone, you know, doing your thing, recording, and you know, away from the world, you know. That's what I would, you know, and that's why I asked that question too, is I was curious, because it is a mix of different kinds of instruments and stuff, including real strings and everything. How, if you did some of it at home or not. So I bet you have, if that's the case, I bet you have probably a lot of, I would assume, maybe unreleased stuff just sitting around on a computer.
That's a very astute deduction. Yes, we have so much. I mean, for this album in particular, we went through a period of, it must have been about a month in December, last year, or no, last year now. And I think we wrote something like 47, 48 songs.
Yeah.
And then the 12 that are from this album were picked out of those. But even since then, we've come back to them. And actually, I really like some of the ones we passed over the first time. And we're kind of working on those now. Hopefully, after this album is released, we'll get a chance to get back in and get writing on those.
So, okay. So I get it. So you do actually have like a bunch of stuff there. I'm going to look to see. I exited out, but I wanted to see I forgot how many tracks this record was. How many tracks is the album?
12.
It is 12. Okay. All right. So you went in, the 12 tracks that I'm hearing on the record were birthed from the 48 tracks that were already there, kind of, you've been working on. And so that leaves a whole slew of songs that are left over that some will probably, I know how it works, dude. Like some are just going to go nowhere. Some are just going to be done and done. See, George is like, yeah, of course, man. George just did, exactly. You just did the face where like 90% of them are going to be garbage.
I'm not even sure we're keeping any, but we'll play with them.
Yeah. Not garbage, but thrown away. I mean, but yeah, it's like, so you have like all this other, so it's like you guys are continuously, have the ability to keep. And so how far apart are you guys like physically?
Oh, so I was there an hour ago at Jack's house.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So it's just that I've very recently moved to the countryside. Mm-hmm. So I've sort of gotten out of London physically, but the music is still there. So I travel back in and we work in Brixton together. Yeah. But on those old songs that we're sort of revisiting, I'll be quite interested to see how they develop, because this whole album was written in such a like explosion of like emotion for you, Jack, and it was like one very specific period of time that all of it was like almost the whole album was written in 2 weeks. And so we wrote the most songs we've ever written ever in about a month, and then it was done. So I wonder now if we go back, whether you'll write completely different lyrics to what are already sitting there, whether you'll be like, I'm a different man now.
Hey, you never know. I mean, that might be a thing. It depends, I guess. It depends on Jack and how he's feeling. He might go back and listen and for some people, it's more like, revisiting that, even though things are, certain tracks are, focused on struggle or a lot of that kind of darker inner emotion coming out or whatever. Sometimes it's maybe for you, it'd be easy when you listen to an older song like that. Maybe instead of feeling like George said, oh, maybe I'll just rewrite lyrics to this because maybe it's different to listen back and say, yeah, well, I'm not going through what I was going through then, but it's interesting to listen back, and I still want to keep things as they are because that's who I was when that record was recorded. But also, maybe George is getting at, maybe we don't need 2 really sad albums. Maybe the next
there it is.
Great, is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay.
Get
on board with that, I suppose.
So, in terms of the writing process for this record in particular, and for the other 30 some odd songs, 28 songs, you guys knocked this all out in like a month. And so you obviously hung out a lot that month, and just, you know what I mean? And just really, and was that a thing for you, Jack, in particular, where you were like, I need to get this out, of my system?
Yeah, I was so lucky to have that outlet because, usually most people don't get the luxury of being able to whine into a microphone about problems and get it out that way. They just have to sort of just sit.
They bottle it up, man.
Yeah, bottle it up. Yeah, turn it into a tumor, exactly. But no, I was very lucky in not having to do that. And I've never actually, George, it must have been a very, not an ideal time for you having to listen to that, the lyrical content of that, and then in the lunch break, the unabridged audiobook version.
Yeah.
How I was and why I was so sad.
No, I think that it was good. It was sort of, obviously it wasn't good. It was sad and all of that, but it was invigorating because it was so much quicker. We'd spent like, just in contrast to the previous like month, we had spent a month knocking around 1, maybe 2 songs, and then suddenly trauma happens, and then you're like, bang, here you go. Here's another great line. Here's another song. Let's go for another one. And that shit gets me going. So that was like fine, totally fine. And then obviously over lunch, I just sort of tune you out. And...
Yeah. I did wonder what your earpods were doing in your. You assured me they were off. Yeah.
I'm just reviewing the songs right now. Just so that answers a lot of my questions. Oh, you know what? Here's a good one. All right, so this, and you guys, I would love it if you answered it separately, but you guys might know each other so well you can answer for each other. Who knows? Let's find out. This is something I like to ask pretty much anyone that I'm interviewing, because it's really interesting to find out, because what I like to do is go back and listen and see if those influences are in the music. Let's start with George. Let's start with you, if you don't mind. What would you say, honestly, and this is a toughie, not everyone likes this question, but what would you say would be maybe your top 5 musical influences of your lifetime, do you think?
Oh, yeah. My God.
I know. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Right, this gives me time to scribble stuff.
I know. Yeah, I realized they gave Jack a heads up on that one.
Yeah. Oh, God.
And it could be, it doesn't have to, it could be anything. Maybe your mom listened to records when you were a kid and, whatever,
Yeah. I think, so let me work backwards. So I got really into being this like acoustic guy when I was like 17. I was like, I'm all about playing like as virtuosic acoustic guitar as is possible. I was the Andy McKee. I was tapping away. I was smashing the crap out of my guitar, being like, this is totally it. This is going to be great. So in that sense, it was like maybe Andy McKee or maybe like a Ben Howard, that kind of like acoustic guy. But then I went to uni and immediately was like, well, no one cares about this shit. I'll just... I'll make music that people want to hear. So I'd say something like Ben Howard. I'd say it's very hard to ignore like John Butler in that sort of area. I would say Alt J were huge for me at uni, which was a big formative time. Gotta love a bit of Stevie Wonder. Stevie, Ben, Alt J. Probably Bon Iver at this point. You can't be in Arliston without a Bon Iver.
Yeah, correct answer. Well done.
Can I come up with? The thing is, there's so many. I can just.
I know.
Bonobo.
Who?
Bonobo. He's a sort of like electronic. He's from New York. He's an electronic sort of. I don't know what you would call him.
Like a DJ?
Yeah, he's kind of a DJ, but he was like the first guy to do, well, maybe not the first guy, someone somewhere will tell me I'm wrong, but he was doing the like electronic music, but also live sampling the instruments.
Oh, that's cool.
Jazzy, sort of a bit jazzier than most of my other references there.
So Jack, what about you? What you've had some time now.
Yeah, this better be excellent.
This better be good.
Okay, yes. Well, obviously my main classical composers. My dad obviously and mum were very influential in earlier life because they introduced me to and were sort of playing things that I realize in retrospect were of good taste, like Joan Armatrading and lots of guitar people like Eric Clapton, Jimi Hendrix, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
So that was the sort of musical foundation. And then I think I basically had an equivalent of a medieval dark age where I just would hear like Britney Spears on the radio and sort of, kind of like primary color pop and think, okay, all right, that's music. I'll put that in that box. I know what music is now. That's
right.
That thing that it's the noise in the car on the way to school. And then I heard Damien Rice when I was like maybe 15, 16. I was like, oh, so that's music. Okay, well actually that's not in that box at all. And then that led on to Bon Iver, and then later the National and Matt Berninger and his incredible combination of voice and lyrics. And then like George, Alt J, Bon Iver, they're both huge for me.
Wow.
And I think I've never really moved to George rightly takes the piss out of me for not really having any musical growth at all. Like I just have an incredibly narrow corridor of music taste, and I refuse to accept anything that's not those things.
No, you've added one person to your rotation this year.
Yeah. I did, didn't I? Yeah, there you go. I'm an omnivore.
Well, those are interesting ones too. So I mean, some of those make a lot of sense to me also. And like I said, the reason that I like to ask questions like that is to go back and see if I could hear some of it in the music. So George, before this, did you have records that you released on your own, or were you in other bands? Or
yeah, plenty of other sort of bands and projects, and of such a sort of eclectic range from like dance music and sort of weird hip hop lo-fi. I did a bunch of beats for rappers. That's
awesome.
So sort of a bit of everything, sort of. And then I was a session musician, so I was playing guitar for touring acts a bit when I was younger than I am now. God, that's a sad way to end that sentence.
I would have had more energy.
In my youth, before I knew who you were, I listened to the record, and as I was listening to the record, I was kind of like, okay, these feel like chapters in your life, like these songs feel like chapters of a certain time period of your life, and you're just letting it out. And I think that if you listen to a few tracks, yeah, you might get an idea of the gist of the vibe of the album. But if you listen to the whole album, especially with headphones on, then you get like the full experience, and you can kind of go through the range of emotions with it. You can go through the range of intensities with it. And also when you listen with headphones, the way it was mixed, who mixed the record?
Yeah,
Brett.
Well, I mean, Brett Shaw, really, really great audio engineer.
Incredible.
He's just the absolute boy. But talking about the album, it is really an album that what you're describing is true, because it kind of weirdly is chronologically ordered in the sort of way that it was written. If you remember, Jack, it was like it's like one of the songs was from the very beginning of his writing, and it's just sort of it kind of is a timeline as you go through the album.
Yeah, right. Well, it was a very sort of easy way to do it in a way, because I didn't think about it happening this way. But naturally, when you go through a sort of something, externally stupid, but internally the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone, like I did, then there is a series of emotions that you go through as a rite of passage. You get the sort of the initial like, oh my God, this is terrible. Yeah. And then some kind of bargaining stage after that. And then after that, some degree of acceptance. And
it's like the 5 stages of grief,
Yeah, exactly. Whatever the other 2 are that I forgot, those are in there as well. And the songs were just written as I passed through those 5 stages.
So Disappointment Machine out February 7th. You guys are playing a show the 6th. And where is that show again?
That is St Pancras Old Church in London.
Okay. And then Scratches is out now. I like Scratches. I think that's a good single. And you guys are, getting ready to just like rock out more stuff. Are you guys like, even as we speak, like everything's obviously done, certain songs are released, the album's got a release date. Are you guys more focused on like rehearsing together now for a little bit, or something like, or are you getting right back into the recording?
It's rehearsing for the show, and also we're packaging up all of the so we've made like deluxe bundles, which are basically the vinyl, and then we've made this like sketchbook thing that sort of explains a bit behind the songs. It's got like sketches, the lyrics, notations, little photos from each song, so it's like a little book of how to consume the album. So
that's awesome.
So we've made these little books up, and we've turned into a little like packing factory at the minute. Oh, we got like vinyl book, t-shirt, sticker thing.
That's cool. That's what you got to do. I mean, actually, that's a really interesting concept to be able to have a book that kind of digs deeper into the record and has actual, visuals that you can look at, and maybe like the actual lyrics written or something cool like that. See, that's what I'm talking about, dude. That's what I mean when I say like, when I was a kid, I would go buy like a vinyl record. It was this big thing, You know, you could open it up and you pull out the insert and there'd be the lyrics, and then, you know, written by each thing. You listen to the record and just sit there and fucking stare at the thing for, you know, like that to me was, you know, it's just, there's certain elements to the way things are now that make me a little sad. Jack, you should write a song about it, because it's sad and it's not fun. People need the experience. They know how kids these days don't get that experience, man. Like, how could I be the last generation that goes and, I mean, I know that's not true. A lot of people get vinyls now. It's like it's a thing again, you know. Yeah, this has been awesome. Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Well, hold it all against me. I can see that you were right. The fine words won't fix this every time.